Hello, everybody. And
Hello.
welcome to Art First. We are back here again, back at it the day after the 4th, even if you're watching this in the future. But it was a good time. How you doing, Brian? How have you been? How's the
I've been
baby? How's
well.
dad
Had a
life?
great time visiting your house yesterday for the 4th. Got to see the family.
It was
Got to
great to.
tour your house, but one thing I didn't get to see is
Mm.
the room that you're in right now.
You did,
Still a mystery. That's the Bat Cave, you know?
I didn't know that wasn't on the tour. I was grilling sausages at the time, so I was not in charge of the tour.
No, it was
But
great. The sausage was awesome.
well, your baby was adorable, by the way. It was great to meet your baby.
No, it was good. There's a lot of babies and children, so we were in good company there.
There
Um,
were. It's a good
yeah,
time.
and it was good weather.
Yeah,
Solid holiday, despite when I looked at my phone and computer, everything
blowing
it
up
wasn't
around
red,
you.
white, and blue. It was just red,
It
as
was
they
just
say.
red. So much red.
But so
that
that was a fun way to have existential crisis during the holiday. But
I
I'm not too worried. It's one of those things. I feel dead inside at this point when it comes to these type of dips. Now that I've been through so many of them,
yeah.
my
I don't
attitude
look.
is so positive towards the future that I don't care as much about these things because they're all just based on FUD from Germany or Mount Gox and all those things. Those will all sort themselves out and things
It
will
will.
even back up.
It's going to be a blip at some point. It'll be okay. Everything's going to be fine. I tried not to look yesterday, which was actually really helpful. I was too busy entertaining and grilling and doing all the stuff that I was like, I know it's not great, but I'm happy here. So yeah,
Yeah,
I recommend it.
it's fun to see. I think the humor of the space really shines when things are bad. And
Mm,
so that, there's lots of funny memes and jokes, and we all cope with
we
humor. So
cope together.
funny. It's a
Yes.
funny time despite the sadness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if people are looking for things to do during the moments of sadness to brighten their mood, I cannot recommend today's guest more because
Mm.
he is wildly talented as an
Oh yeah.
illustrator. He's also a dude who builds cars, which, like, that's way beyond what I can comprehend. But he's made a series of artworks that just bring so much joy every time I see them. The master of light and glass and illustration and ooze, we have today bringing to the stage Mr. Brian Morris. Welcome to Art First. Hello,
Fellow Brian.
Oh,
double Brian's.
good morning. How are you guys? Thank you.
Doing great. And great to have you. I mean, Adam already praised, but when I think of your art, it's on a technical skill level that always amazes me. You're just a master of getting, I guess glass is a good way of putting it, because I just think of like the translucency and all this other stuff that, and you've shown breakdowns of how you do it, and it blows my mind every time.
Oh, thanks, man. I try my best, and it blows my mind too. That's why I love doing it so much. It's like, how can this be possible? Like, how can you make that idea happen, and then just watching it unfold is great.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I would imagine you're a man of great patience, because I know what it takes. As all of us as artists, like, we understand what it takes to put effort into a piece, and regardless of how simple or complex a piece is, we know what goes into these things. And for what it's worth, the more complex a piece, the more time naturally has to go into it. And seeing your work and understanding a breakdown of layers, it's mind bending. Like, we'll bring some of it up here, but yeah, I'll start. I'll throw up this piece. It's called a Mona in Time, that you've got, and it's
Ooh.
the Mona Lisa in a way that I've never seen before. And I've got a close up here. Look at this, people. Like, this is bonkers. Like, the detail that goes, and this isn't even the highest res, and you're all probably watching it on like YouTube or whatever. But what
Like the little skeleton in the neck. I didn't see that at first.
that's it. There's all these little hidden things, right?
Well,
Oh,
so
there's a bunch. Yeah.
the piece is called A Mona in Time, and climbing up through her are beings that are approaching the present and then descending it. So it's, you have this you see the skeletons are kind of blue climbing up her, and then golden climbing down her. And so these entities, these beings, have experienced a moment in time themselves. And my hope with this piece was, it was a Mona Lisa we all know and love and understand it. This is a new view into it, an added depth that asks you to spend more time with the piece to see new things. And so it itself kind of bringing you into a moment of time that's already familiar to you. So there's a lot of a lot of story and narrative that I try to bake into the glass itself.
Yeah, the warping around the glass is so awesome.
Yeah. So like in terms of your understanding of, of the material, of glass, of refractions and reflections, is that something that you studied? Like, have you done glass blowing? Are you, do you have a background in anything related to that? Or like how are you, figuring out like just the details and the way light bends around, glass like that?
Well, you talked earlier about cars, building cars. I spend a lot of time looking at cars, just studying them. Like before this call, I spent 25 minutes just looking at the fenders on the Volkswagen behind me. And I get lost in it. I get lost in looking in that depth. And they're shiny. And, I started drawing cars as a kid and drawing a lot of chrome and engines and stuff. And so that's where that just studying how light comes around a curve and how, it's actually just, it sculpts it, sculpts the object and makes it more of itself. That's where I kind of get lost. So that's where it came from.
And then you also repair and build cars, right?
Yeah. This one I call the Gray Bug. It was a car that I bought in parts. It was an abandoned Volkswagen project that a guy gave up on like 20 years ago. And so I bought all these boxes of parts and trailered it all home. And then over the course of a year, almost a year to the day, it was a car worth featuring, a car worth celebrating. Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you go to car shows and stuff?
I don't. I actually started to go again this year. I hadn't been since the pandemic began. This car here I finished in 2020, and 2 weekends ago was the first time that I went to a car show. I just parked it and then moved on to another project.
That's awesome. You can start selling your art at the car shows and sell it out of the trunk.
I mean,
yeah.
It feels like it would be. I mean, like, have you ever put your art on like leather jackets, or I feel like the car culture community would really take to your art.
Your art would be sweet on the side of a van.
Yeah.
I do a lot of like commissions for car clubs and wheel companies and stuff. Like, yeah.
Oh yeah, those those tire things on the back of Jeeps.
Yeah.
So when you draw something like this, so that shoulder, you got those lines. Are you sketching it with the distortion, or are you drawing it straight and then like warping?
I do both. So I draw it straight, like anatomically straight. So if you took all the glass away, it looks right.
Yeah.
Then I take that and I warp it, and then I take that warped and use that as my pattern to hand draw it in the distorted way.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
so these pieces are like
in doing that, I actually I feel like I learned more about how to warp things correctly over time, because I'm literally forcing myself to study it and recreate it, burning it in, if you will.
Yeah. And so each piece has like been worked and then reworked multiple times.
Yeah. Like I often think a piece is done, and I've learned this last year, if I think a piece is done, wait a month, take 30 days, and then go back and look at it. And like, I just ripped into a piece of, I thought was finished 2 months ago. I started ripping into it a couple days ago again. Because it might've been done then, but I've learned some more things and I want to apply that piece.
Especially like highlight passes. I feel like anytime I add another highlight pass, I'm like, oh yeah, I can't believe I didn't have that before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always hard to determine when a piece is done, right? Like, especially if it's not for a specific deadline.
I think of it as it's almost that same feeling of when you're wringing out a wet rag. Like you'll never get it completely dry, but at some point you just can't wring any more out of it. I think that's the job of like an artist, is like how, for me at least, like how much can you wring out of it without killing the energy of the piece? Because it's really easy to like overwork something to the point where it's just strangled to death, and it's tedious to look at.
It's a great analogy.
Yeah.
How long would you say that this piece took you?
Yeah.
I mean, I could look at the Procreate file and kind of determine it.
This is all Procreate. No, just straight all Procreate.
I only use Photoshop to reduce it in size when I did the print.
Wow.
That's incredible.
So you're working at large scales to begin with.
Yeah, I think this image itself, because of Procreate's file size limitations, not to get technical, boring the shit out of everybody now.
No,
this is about technicality.
What we want.
We
want that.
This was I was limited to 40 layers at all times during the creation process because of the size I was working at. So it was a lesson in file organization, layer collapsing, masterclass, but like there's thousands of layers here, and so hundreds of files over time kind of combining together.
That's so risky to keep bringing them back together.
Are you working in different files? Like, you know, you've gotten to a point and then it's more or less flattened, and you bring in, and then you work 40 layers of, you know, a shading pass, and then you flatten it 40 layers of a. Pretty much.
Are you duplicating the project over?
Say again.
Are you duplicating the project every time just to have a backup in case?
Yeah, I tend to do big milestone backups. Or how do I say this? If I'm in a poor mood or if I'm in a good mood, if my mood is in either extreme, I will make a duplicate of the file before I start working. I will inevitably do something impulsive.
Yeah.
And I just want a safety net, because you know, those often lead to like really big breakthroughs. They also you can shatter something that you've worked really hard to get right. Yeah. This is the piece I just started digging back into.
Nice. So when you're drawing these in Procreate, are you using default brushes, custom brushes? Like, what do you prefer?
I use, for the glass stuff, I use it's all default. There's only one brush. The only one brush that I've created is it's a inversion of the light pen. I call it the dark light pen. And rather than creating a highlight using additive dynamic effects, it creates shadows using a color burn dynamic effects.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But other than that, it's just the standard studio pen.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the soft airbrush are really the two things that I use.
It just shows the mastery of craft that you have, that you can get the most out of the most basic stuff.
Yeah, you don't need. I don't know. I'll enjoy experimenting with brushes, and I have other styles I work in that do rely on other brushes, and that's great. But like, it's hard to master something when you're trying to find a solution in a field of possibilities. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you could search for the right brush forever and just like keep experimenting. That's great, but you're never going to get fucking great at that brush.
Right. If you force yourself, force yourself into something that works well enough, you can get really good at it.
Yeah. When I first started drawing as a kid, I used pencils, of course, but I went to Sharpies very quickly because of the bold lines it would create. But also, I learned very quickly, if you fuck up after like you're an hour into a drawing and you make a mistake, like you gotta work with that. You gotta live with that and figure out how to solve around it.
Yeah.
And so, for first decade of me drawing, I used almost exclusively Sharpies because it forced me to like be really thoughtful about what I was doing.
That's not something that that's an interesting, work ethic to have, especially young in a career, because it's not a choice that most people kind of willingly make. They see the result and they see it, messes up, and they're like, oh, well, maybe I should, pencil this out first, or maybe,
Yeah, I'm never worried about the result ever. ever, ever, ever. Like, just trust the process, do the thing to the best of your ability and a little better than last time. And you will get places that you can't anticipate. You'll see things and make things you yourself won't be able to comprehend, because you're putting trust in the process and you're just pushing yourself to do better in that thing, and you'll unlock a whole new world.
Love that. So how much of this also, because so many of your drawings, when you're doing the glass, you have the anatomical aspect. How much of that is pulling off of a knowledge of having studied some anatomical books, or looking at reference for things, or or just making stuff up, like in terms of feel, and because maybe this vein isn't here really, but it looks cool, or like what level of involvement?
It's evolved over time. It used to be I just make it up, and then it became I want to study it for real. And now it's in a spot where I do kind of the blend of the two things, where I'm curating what's anatomically correct, and adding splashes of imagination to bring things to life. So like, I looked at ape skulls and how they're architected and how they're different and the same to a human skull that I might understand. And that allowed me to kind of shape it in a way that made sense, that fit, a very proportionally incorrect figure that captures our imagination. We love it. But how do you shove a skull in there, and then how does the glass support it? Yeah. Like here you can see there's a heart.
It's like a cartoon heart.
Yeah. You may not even recognize it because of the distortion and stuff. But like, if you sat here and looked at it long enough and be like, why is that red over there? And just kind of looked into the piece, be like, oh, this ape has a heart.
That's the deeper message.
When it comes to your animated works, are those all animated in Procreate as well, or are you taking those elsewhere?
I've recently started using Dreams.
How do you like Dreams? Procreate Dreams.
Procreate Dreams. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoy it. It allows me to do hand-drawn frame-by-frame animation that I really enjoy doing in Procreate, but in Dreams, the possibilities are so much wider. It's a bigger field to play in. There's more control. The onion skinning is just,
I got to get into it. I've
done a little bit with it, but not enough.
Yeah, I'm still doing animation in regular Procreate, which I adore just because I'm so comfortable with it at this point. But onion skinning has some, something to be desired.
Well, just as an example, I think the piece on the right here, where all the eyes are following the mouth, those were done in Procreate.
Yeah.
But some of the lessons learned there, applying it into Dreams, like I'm doing a full animated short of driving a car down my favorite street in Chicago. And it's because there's just so many more tools and ways to look at the work that, a few months ago, a year ago, that was really pushing it for me. And now I think I'm really excited to share some of the stuff I've been working on.
That's awesome.
I love the mix of glass, frosted glass, flat shapes, because I would imagine, when you're doing, some of the bigger, tentpole pieces, you're seeing the flat versions and they're probably looking pretty dope also, and then how do you fight that urge, or when do you make that decision early on to say, okay, I'm going to keep this flat, or, oh, okay, I'm going to keep pushing this? Cause even within this, the Ooze collection, you've got a mix of okay, some of the, more what I would, the Brian Morris style, glass versions, or when you get something like this and you're like, this is just so clean and beautiful and flat, so what's the thought process between going between the two versions of your work?
Yeah, I just follow my curiosity.
Nice.
And some days it's let's sit down and get really detailed, and then the pieces you were just referring to, those were actually paint on watercolor paper.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so these, if you grabbed one of these, I sent you the original painting. And, it was just that week I was like, I got to get off the iPad. I've been staring into this glass for too long. And so I made about 20 of these, and there were, I think, 5 that I felt were really good. So threw them in the mix.
No, that's awesome. I'm looking right now because I don't remember where I put them, but I know. Yeah, but they're wonderful too, and this is what I was talking about in terms of like just bringing joy. Like I love this series, and it reminds me in terms of like following your curiosity. It reminds me a couple of years ago you started a project, and I apologize I don't have a reference to it right here, where you worked with collectors that they would maybe you would make a blob shape and then they would have input, and I know you made like a venom piece and some other cool things, but you would collaborate essentially with a collector and say, trust me, if you like what I do, trust the process, and we're going to make something together, right? That was pretty awesome.
It was called the Insiders. It obviously would play on things inside a glass, but once a month I would get people together for several hours a day for a week straight, and you minted the sketch. It was just this blob, and then over the course of that week, we would draw it together, like in live stream, and people could give recommendations in the moment. There were themes they could vote on, and I just did it all live. I didn't draw by myself at any point, all the way to the minting process. So they got to see the whole shebang and really be part of it. And again, it's about trusting the process. I didn't know what we were going to make. They didn't know what we were going to get. It was a risk. It was like a journey we were all going to go on.
I think that.
Look at that. We got the comment we just got has that venom in there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, does it? Let me see if I can pull that up.
Look, Symbiotic, one of the gents of the Web3 space, a Farcaster brother. I love you, man. And he's rocking that as a PFP. Like that to me, that makes me smile so much. Like that's I don't even know what to say. I love that, man.
I think your work's awesome. And I do see that connection between the car world and your art. I feel like when I look at your art, it feels like that kind of airbrushed hot rod, almost like Rat Fink inspired type stuff as well. So I do see you have these two separate things, but there is an overlapping influence that I can see from as an outsider.
Well, I'm going to move my camera in a second just to prove a point, Brian. Like these shapes, these O's, right? They're like a series of eyes. My favorite logo as a kid, I grew up around cars and hot rods and stuff. My favorite logo was the Moon Eyes logo. And it hangs, oh boy, it hangs above where I work every day, all day.
Wait, can you show it again?
I don't think we saw it. It froze up right when you showed it.
I have this
there it is. Oh yeah.
Go with Moon. And the circles have always just, look at the paintings behind me here. I draw wheels. I paint wheels because I love them. And those eyes were like, I don't know, always iconic to me. So when I thought about, what kind of collection or what kind of character do I feel like is really me and that's been with me as my, my whole life, those eyes, those moon eyes have been it.
I like it. We got the alpha there.
No, that's really, really cool.
60s advertising worked really well.
Have you ever tried using an airbrush?
I have, when I was really experimental when I was a kid with art, and I still use an airbrush from time to time, but not good enough to be like here.
Sure. Have you ever done glass blowing?
I've made some glass stuff, but I've again, it was like I used to be a creative director, and so I would take the team to things like glass blowing or pottery, or we'd go to sign painting shops and learn from some of the sign painting masters. So that was my depth of glass blowing. But I really appreciate the tedious process, the mastery of it, the inherent hand in the results of each hand. That stuff is really appealing to me too.
When I think about the tedious process or getting lost in something, like when I was a kid, I was diagnosed with ADD, and that hyper focus or ability, I didn't have the H in ADHD. Like I'm definitely not hyperactive, but I definitely do have that sort of when I find a thing, whether it's animation or editing or, so I could just be in there and the world disappears. Not making any kind of diagnosis here, but this feels like that sort of hyper focus and superpower, you know?
Oh man, I was held back in grade school because I couldn't sit in my chair in class.
Yeah.
Like I was just too. I can't sit and watch TV. I can't pause. Productivity is like rest, you know, which is sometimes a danger. But yeah, when I can get into a piece and draw, it's where I'm at my most calm and most centered. And I can spend 8 hours in a chair doing that, but I can't. There's nothing else I can do that long.
Yeah, this work's awesome. It's so inspiring too.
It is. The
You're getting
breadth of the
so much work out of these like simple starting template ideas of just these shapes and colors, and you're getting so much out of it. It's amazing.
Yeah, but that's I hate to say it like this, but you know, coming from a advertising and marketing background, when I think of brand, I think about how flexible something is, and how durable it can be, and how it can extend over time and across platforms and usage, and still remain at its core the thing. And so the O's to me are like the brand I always wanted to see. And there's some stuff I've been working on, like actual automotive products that bear this stuff, and I've been trying to figure out a way to make candy of these things. It's like, what products can these things, what kind of product or experience can I create around these beyond the art is kind of my quest.
These are the
very cool.
Some insides. Yeah, they're so special, each one of them, to especially for having a recognizable style, like and also just knowing, look, I'm sure someone might see this and try to do this, but this is such a clear labor of love that anything short of doing it right is just not going to work.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see him like this. I don't often take the opportunity to see the work kind of all like this. I see it in my Procreate. I just flip past it to the next project.
Sure.
So it's really cool actually to like see it on the screen here and take it.
Yeah. Oh, look at that.
This was a commission, I think in 2021. My friend Andy Poon, he's a big Batmobile fan. And so he asked me to do one. He didn't say it had to be glass. He's like, maybe that would be cool. And I got lost in thinking about, I'm a big, car guy. So I knew that the 66 Batmobile was based on a Ford concept car called the Futura, the Lincoln Futura, which was, I believe it was introduced in 56. And I got to think about, well, what chassis would have they put underneath that concept car? They probably would have based it on the Thunderbird chassis, the Thunderbird 302 with an extended wheelbase. So like I got to imagine that drivetrain underneath that concept car and then draw the Batmobile out of the concept car. So I got to go through kind of a conceptual journey in making it, realizing what it might look like, which was just a lot of fun. Yeah. I look at this now, I'm like, oh, I should have done so much more work on that.
That's why we shouldn't look back on our old work.
That's the danger of looking back on any of our old work.
We learn, we get better. That's the point.
Yeah. No, but this collection's also a nice just throwback to what the space was at the Bowl. You get kind of a sense of the projects and what people were into.
Well, that's keeping that alive, still doing that today. Our space is very much about meme coins and a lot of the community around that. And this last few months been, I created a project with my friend Brock for the berry coin. We made this interactive Farcaster game. So developing like a character and a brand around that. And I think too, like that's gonna be another moment in time of like, it wasn't an NFT, but it was a Web3 enabled social game on a emerging social platform. Yeah. And, these were the people making it happen. And like, I have as much energy for that as I do for drawing a glass ape.
it's a snapshot in time. It's sort of like this really cool little like time capsule of events that have happened within the crazy space that we're in.
You got to celebrate the space. And the best way to do that is to participate in it and bring some value to it instead of, always extracting.
I like the collabs there too. Eddie and Gabe. That's cool.
Yeah. 2021 was a magical time, wasn't it?
It really was. I collaborated with Gabe as well, and like it was the kind of time. It was a moment in time when anything kind of felt possible. It was a very level playing field. It was like, everyone was just excited about all of this, and doors seemed very open in terms of access to people across the spectrum.
In hindsight, I wish I would have given my collaborators more space in the work. Again, I strangled their work into. Yeah, I am sorry.
I think it's a great collab.
No, I think it's wonderful. I think you're being too harsh.
Always a critic.
A nice blend, but that's what drives us.
Yes.
Well, speaking of other artists and other people's work,
Good segue.
Thank you. I've been working on these, man. I'll get one out of every 30 episodes, and we're not there yet. But yeah, I think this is as good a time as any to do a little show and tell. How about it, guys?
Let's do it.
Let's roll it. All right. So this is the part of the show where each of us has brought 3 pieces of artwork we have either collected or just found and thought was really dope, and we want to share that with the world to help spotlight artists and raise people up. I'm the only one who has seen all of the things we're about to see, so the other people on the show, you guys don't know what we're about to see. We're going to take a look and dive right in now. We will start with our guest of honor, Mr. Bryan. Here we go. We're going to start with this piece you selected called Joyful Prancing from
Ooh.
So much fun. I look at this piece and all I see is Fantasia.
Yeah.
Original Fantasia from Disney. And one of the the more magical moments in that film where there's dancing on the lake and so that's what I see when I'm looking at this. But why don't you tell us a little bit about the piece you picked here?
I think you kind of nailed it.
My bad.
Well, I love this artist so much because the space that they hold in their brain must be so magical. And like
what's the artist's name again?
I don't
Cure?
think. Yeah, Cure. We haven't
Cure.
mentioned.
Okay.
No, I was trying to build up to like the name mentioned so that everybody's like, who is this person?
We just keep.
I love.
You got me. You hooked me in.
Welcome back to Stealing Thunder.
No, the space that they must hold in their brain to not just come up with it, but to pursue the idea to the degree necessary to make that is they're creating more joy in the world simply by creating that space in their head. And that's why I love this piece so much. I think it was one of their lesser kind of known pieces. It was one of the first frame by frame animated pieces that they kind of put out into the world that got, any kind of attention. And it's one that it just captured my imagination. I love so much of their work, but this one to me is like, it's a glimpse into what was to come, and I hope to see more.
I think, did you send 2? Because the other piece was this piece. I feel like that was also something that you sent, which is just gorgeous.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, again,
retro.
Their ability to hold a vision in their head and trust the process to get to it is just, it inspires me, and it's all shiny and shit. Like it looks.
Yeah.
It does have the shine. What I really liked about that animated one, and it's a subtle thing, but it's not a simple, like it could have been done as a simple loop where it's just a quarter of it animated essentially.
Yeah.
But they go that extra step and create a variance, which gives it that kind of whimsical fun aspect that really adds so much to it. Because like that guy on the left, sometimes he steps up and sometimes he turns into a ball.
Yeah, I noticed that during screenshotting this. It just kept getting new stuff.
It goes a long way.
It rewards you for spending a moment with it, right? That's what I mean. Like you're more able to get into the zone that this person was in creating it, because it rewards your participation in viewing.
That's a great way to put it. Also, I don't have the audio linked up right here to it. There is this like very, it's what you would expect with little like twinkle sounds and little xylophones. It's very and chimes. It's very subtle and nice. At the end of the show, I send out a link on our Twitter, Art First Show on Twitter, and it has links to all the pieces that we've talked about, from Bryan's work to all the pieces of the artists we're showing here, so people can go and deep dive into all of that. Great stuff, man.
Yeah, great first pick.
All right, Bryan Brinkman.
So
Bryan
Brinkman
Brinkman,
too.
Let's hop up to you, sir. All right, here's our first piece with yours. Your choices here.
Ooh,
Skewed Views,
yeah,
number 8.
Skewed Views.
Bye.
So this, this is by Hugh Views, the wife of Bananakin, who I featured last time. This project I really enjoyed, not just the singular piece which I got, but the collection, because each one seems to have a mix of a typed word, cut out paper, some sort of photo of the past, and a concert ticket. And I love the idea of concert tickets as memorabilia, and the fact that each of these represents a concert that she went to over time, I think is really fun.
Mhm.
You get a sense of her craftiness. I mean, I have a stitched piece of hers in my kitchen. I love her work. She does awesome stuff. But this one just was such a fun collection because it not only is visually exciting, but it also gives a history of her own life, which is really fun. It's like I think about the things I collect, and you go, what will I ever do with all these concert tickets that I've held on to, or what will I ever do with these concert T-shirts or stuff like that, and like to see a creative execution of the memorabilia we hold and do stuff with is so fun.
No, I love that. I love it. It reminds me a little bit of one of the collections artists whose name I forget, but you had once featured where it was like just a collection of like things on their hard drive, like random memories and from photos and stuff on their hard drive. But it is sort of like, what do you do with this stuff? And if you're an artist, to be able to synthesize those memories into pieces of art is really cool. And like you said, I like things that have like a rule to them. Like, okay, it has to have some cutout. This has to have the concert ticket. It has to have something about the venue, or or a photo.
Yeah.
And just like, but then using those constraints to work within. These are really awesome.
It's a realistic generative project.
It's like it's a reframing of personal history.
Yeah.
It's a way of re-identifying with what you've learned and the things you've done. It's pretty cool. Beautiful.
You can learn a lot about a person from what concerts they go to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's see who they got here. Oh, The Weeknd. There you go.
That's cool.
Very good stuff, man. Good find. Alrighty. So I went digging this past week and found some really, really fun stuff. All right. Here's a piece. It's Juggling Loop, Toomba animation, and I have not seen. Of course, it's going to pause right there. I've not seen much, if any, stop motion animation, and I love stop motion. And looking, at Bryan's work for like the last week or so, I'm seeing eyes everywhere, and I'm like, he's just jumped right out at me.
I like the tooth.
Yeah. You think about the story that they're trying to tell here, and the commitment again to the process of like, no, the story is he's juggling his eyes and he eats them. Like, that's the story, and I'm going to make this happen. It makes you feel good.
It does. And it's so, I'm a sucker for fun, silly, whimsical stuff, clearly. And and also just I really appreciate, I think what did it for me with this one wasn't just like, the fun of it, but it was the animation principles of squash and stretch.
Yes.
Like watching the eyeballs, knowing to make that happen, there's an in-between where there's an actual physical piece that's been squashed and stretched into the shape of the eyeball to make it look like it's got motion. So
it's subtly simple, but it's very complex.
It is.
Just knowing how they did this, they had to have had physical, what do they call those rigs, where they hold the pieces in the air, essentially,
like a
and like
maquette
edit
kind
it
of,
out and
like,
all this other stuff.
metal.
Like,
yeah.
And so like knowing this was definitely a ton of work and a ton of understanding and pre-planning and probably pre-animated so they can get the timing right.
Oh, can you imagine? Yeah, I mean, this is mastery. Like
Yeah.
like we were saying before, simple. Not that this is simple, but like simple tools done well, like you can do some amazing things.
Amazing stuff.
Awesome.
All right. Let's move on to something a little bit different. Brian Morris, this is your second pick. Kind of. Now, to be fair, you did send me all of the artworks in this.
Oh yeah, some of it's not safe for work, right?
No,
some
it's
of
not.
it's not. But
Yeah,
I mean,
I know their work. Yeah.
This
But
was.
that's
this
why
was
this
awesome.
this is one artist that I've followed and unfollowed so many times, and that's why I just thinking about artists that really inspire me. Lorna Mills. I'm offended daily, like to the point where I got to mute and block, but then I keep coming back. It's just so powerful.
Yeah. Their work is definitely on the outskirts of the space in terms of it's both offensive and vulgar, but it's also being shown in galleries, and like it really rides this interesting line between fine art and like just like trash art or something. But it's a very defined style, that blocky cutout effect, especially.
I love that
really
blocky cutout effect. I think seeing something that normally, I'm drawn to wanting to fix, or looking, like a mistake, and using it as, a tool to tell a story or to be a part of artwork. Again, when I think of like digital art and I see this, I'm like, right, that is a use of the medium as the message, with not hiding artifacts, not hiding, the way that there's like a gradation because it's a GIF, like it's leaning into all of it. And then on top of it, you've got whatever message is being, portrayed in each piece that they're doing. And it's wonderful. I think it's great.
art.
What's that?
It's outlaw art.
Outlaw.
It is. Yeah, I like it. I feel
Very
like I'm
cool.
going to jail if I ever, if you collected this, like there's a chance you might get on a list.
I just love that you follow and unfollow constantly. You're like, I don't want it, but I want that, but I don't like that.
I like, you love intense situations. I hate horror movies because they put you in intense situations. And when art or an artist can do it, not just with one piece, but with an oeuvre, like that to me that's doing something. It's cool.
Yeah.
It is. No, that's the best case scenario in one way or another when art makes you feel something. So good stuff, man. All right.
Choice.
Bryan Brinkman, your second piece is a bit familiar while also unfamiliar with an awesome.
I wanted to give a shout out to Minimizer.
Amazing.
They're doing this awesome project right now. That's a generative project. That's plottable art. So you can have this all printed on a plotter. And what they did was they reached out to like a dozen or 24 different artists and said, hey, will you allow us to use your palette, essentially? And so I said, yeah, totally. And so what you can do is you can mint this, and then you get a random palette, but then there's a window of time for the next couple of weeks where you can change it to any palette. And there's, generative art, Raptor News, myself, Emily Edelman, all sorts of awesome artists have kind of co-collaborated in the sense with Minimizer. And it's worth looking through the whole collection page because the outputs are very diverse and fun. And I think it's just a really cool project. And it's like super cheap. It's minting on Plottables, which is a plotter art blocks engine website that I feel is very under the radar in this space.
Yeah.
But right behind me, I have a plotting printer here, so I can print any of these out using markers and stuff. And I just think it's just it's a really cool project.
It's really cool. I mean, And Minimizer, for a while now has been an artist doing stuff like this, where the mint lasts for a while. It's however many you want to get. It's collaborative. I wound up getting for the one. It was like I don't know if it was the Infinite Mint or it was like it was definitely one that was open for a very long time, but it was all generative, and I was like just having fun minting to see the outputs.
I think the last one they did was everybody that had the worm NFT got an NFT from them that was basically, it took the history of the worm and created a unique piece of art based on the time that you had the worm and you got a piece.
Oh, right. That's right. I remember that.
Yeah, I missed that. We are all worm disciples, aren't we?
Praise be.
Yeah.
Praise be. We are.
You might have it in your hidden folder.
I think it's probably in your hidden because it was definitely in my hidden. So you have some art that you might not know about. And Brian and I, we both we made little like commemorative moment like worm pieces, from when we were in there.
Oh, hey, Minimizer's saying hi.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hey, Minimizer, you're awesome.
Ooh, fantastic. You have a. Oh, and I got a little praise be. Let's go.
Praise be.
Love the worm.
I do have
the worm right now. I bet the worm is yoinkable right now. If someone doesn't have the worm, I bet you could get it right now.
There's got to be like a second time around campaign for the worm.
Well, it's always open. If someone's held it for a week, you can yoink it and continue it. I bet it's worth checking out. I bet it's kind of stagnated right now.
If there's people watching that don't know about the worm, Adam, you gotta like drop a link. Some fresh ground to cover.
We gotta get the worm going. Yeah. I don't know where it is now, but I'll put a link up to your piece, my piece, and then a link to the worm.
I'll look it up right now. Where's the worm?
Well,
the worm has been in a wallet for 7 days and 4 hours, which means anybody can yoink the worm and take it right now.
Oh,
it's up for grabs.
This is a call to action, people.
Well, then I'll put that link in the Twitter thread. Okay. All right. Good stuff.
These are amazing. Minimizer. Love them.
They really are amazing, right? Look at that. Look at this. And does it say, I imagine it says who is like trait wise. Yep.
Yeah.
Palette by. So cool.
Some of them remind me of like looking at a slide, like a cell slide.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like a mitochondria.
Yeah.
Look at that. Who is this? Whose palette is this? I love it. Who's that?
Oh, that's Raptor News.
Nice.
Shout out Raptor News.
Raptor.
He did like a Trapper Keeper palette.
So good. All right, good stuff, man. That is, I think. Let me see. Can I do it? Can I make it happen? Can I actually do it? There it is. Good stuff.
Good stuff.
All right. We'll keep
owned by
this moving.
Snowfro. Look at that.
Wow.
What's that?
That one's owned by Snowfro.
Oh, nice. Very cool. All right, moving on. So here's another pick. I found this artist, and let me tell you, sometimes I find artists, I'm like, oh, that's really cool piece of art. And this artist, I was like, oh my God. We're sticking with some animation for this, and I just did a deep dive. And this
cool.
Now there's no audio on the show here because it's annoying the way I have to do it until I figure out a better way. But I will encourage people to go check out this whole series. Amin, sorry if I mess you up. Hagashenas, but unbelievable, crazy talented animator. And again, this all matches to beats, but just looking at the action and the emotion and the way these pieces move, again, animation background, knowing what it takes to make this happen.
Great posing.
Such great posing, so well thought out. And then
wow,
there's a series that's just started, and then you look at like, oh, I cannot recommend them enough.
Somebody give this guy a show,
please.
Yeah.
Whoa!
Wow!
Look at this.
What's that one? The one right in the middle of your screen right now.
This guy, the Last Warrior. Let's take a look.
What?
Great last sale too.
Yeah, right. It's gorgeous.
Wow.
just like awesome. look at the
wow.
So good.
Damn.
So incredibly good. And just like someone who so clearly has a great grasp of their craft and of their
That
characters.
horse. I've seen that horse before. I think that one's great.
Again, this Adam, to your point, like craft, but the mindset that this individual had to be in while creating these things, like you have to be in a good mood, or you have to put yourself in a space to make that happen, and that's that's pretty magical.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, this person must work on TV shows, because I mean the background plus the foreground. I mean, someone that knows their skills well.
Yeah.
These are all the characters that they wouldn't let them put on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be someone to greenlight something like this, because I know just how hard it is for everything right now to be greenlit. But if there ever was a case to be made, this is it.
So is this on ETH? Where's this?
Yeah, these are on Foundation on ETH, I believe. Yep, blockchain ETH. This one was last sold 3.5 ETH. But these have a reserve. The music cards are new.
And right now it's at like a 10% discount because of the crash.
Because of the market, yeah, it is. It's true.
Awesome, good choice.
Thank you. All right, let's move on. We have 3 more to go. Mr. Brian Morris, Face Melter, Sam Pearson.
Sam Pearson. I love Sam. He's a good human, and his dedication to like face melty kind of style graphics just takes me back to being 14 years old again.
Sure.
And I mean, I've collected a lot of Sam's work. I just can't stop looking at it. It's like my soul. This is what my soul looks like.
This is sick. I might have shown a Sam Pearson piece on the show early on.
You might have.
I can't remember.
I mean, I'm familiar with their work, and I just well worth showing again though.
Well, yeah. He more recently, I think he's been doing some more stuff digitally, but like, so many of his pieces are pen and ink on paper, and then he scans them in and colors them in Procreate and stuff. So just that dedication to craft. Like I spent decades drawing on paper with a Sharpie, making little dots and shit. Like I know how much work he puts into these things that most people just look past. It looks like a t-shirt graphic, but to me, this is an art for sure.
Yeah, and I think in general, this space allowed some artists who would normally just maybe have an opportunity to only sell something on a t-shirt that looks really dope, but doesn't really get that kind of recognition that more fine art gets recognized. This space kind of allowed room for that to happen, for people to get some recognition like that, because, you look at some of that art and you're like, that's an incredibly awesome piece of art that you can buy on a t-shirt and nowhere else, but like, my God, like the work that went into that can be appreciated on such a higher level. Yeah. Very cool, man.
It's a great choice. I love his work.
All right.
I shared in the private chat the piece I have. If you want
to throw that out?
Why not?
Let's do it.
Give him a little extra love.
A little extra love for the
He had a great series that were all these kind of like kind of marker on paper ones. So that's the one I got about a year ago.
It looks like you got, at least you tweeted it about a year ago, a little more.
Yeah, but this stuff's sick.
Again, I just love it. Takes you back to being a kid.
It's great.
Yeah.
Very cool, man.
Great choices, Brian.
All right.
I'm getting some animation in these.
Yeah.
As well.
Here we go. Bryan Brinkman, you've selected Pepe Shrume. I think this is Ovek, right? Some Ovek colors.
Ovek. I love Ovek's work. I've collected a bunch of his work, and I thought this piece was sick. I think it's still available, and it's very cheap. 0.02 right now. And it's just a sick Pepe piece. Ovek, originally an awesome photographer that was like one of the top photographers in the space, pivoted and started learning how to illustrate and Procreate and became one of the better illustrators in the space as well.
Yeah.
And so, you've seen his work on everything from meme cards to, a bazillion other things. But
They
he's
did the
awesome.
consensus
The
t-shirts.
consensus works. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just thought this was an awesome piece that blended Pepe with shrooms and it has that nice psychedelic 70s vibe to it. Great colors.
Yeah, this palette's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, shout out Ovek. Great dude.
Yep.
Great art.
Great stuff, man.
Look at that guy.
100%.
That's just perpetual happiness right there.
A constant state of bliss.
Yeah.
I love it.
That guy isn't watching the market. He's
No.
No, he's feeling good, man.
Very cool. All right. We'll finish it off. I got one more piece to show. And this is a piece that I found called Dance of Lava 17. It's a series of these. And I love the colors in the series. It was also very calming, the slow motions of the animation. And it also really reminded me of, I don't know if you guys are familiar, back in like the late 80s, early 90s, there were almost everywhere I went, there were these sand art with water in them that you'd flip them over, and then the sand would spiral out down and slowly build a new scene, and then you'd flip it over, and they were like desk toys. But this reminded me of that so much, but like really elegant.
I love this.
That's awesome.
You can get lost.
The colors are great. Yeah.
You can sit with it and just
Yeah, and that's when I think of like some like really cool like digital art that I wouldn't mind having on my wall that would just loop and repeat and just be very, unobtrusive but nice to look at. And when so it's not like just, constantly in your face, but when you get to look at it, it's like this moving, beautiful.
Yeah. I wonder how it's made. I assume it's like, I mean, I know what the animation that it's like that effect, but I'm curious if like it's like AI or it's just really cool.
I'm not sure. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know.
Nice.
Laura,
It'd make great backgrounds for like music performances.
And this series is still live right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
a bunch are taken. Yeah.
It's like geological migration patterns on alien planets.
Ooh.
Like if the sands of planet X2 are shifting.
And it looks like it's selling great. I know she shared it with me recently, and I'm glad it's doing really well.
Is it Bean or Benny? Laura Benet?
I assume.
I don't know why this is not loading, but it is. It's gorgeous stuff here.
Yeah. Is it totally sold out?
Look,
these are it looks like
different. Yeah, I think
those are people reselling the ones they already bought.
Okay, there you go.
Could be wrong. Maybe it says buy now 6. So good stuff.
Oh, there you go.
No, but these are being resold. Yeah, so the original collection, I think, is sold out.
Well, so is it flipping if they're reselling it? Like if they found, I guess it depends on how long they build it.
It's always a flip if you buy it and then sell it for more. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I think flippers are an integral part of price discovery.
Yep.
It's true.
I agree with that.
Did you see Jack Butcher's statement today or yesterday on the floor price?
No, what was it?
No.
Like paraphrasing that, the floor price is seems to be the ultimate metric of value, and the fact that that's determined by people with the least conviction in the project.
It's true. It's also determined. The floor price is only determined by the 2 least convicted people, because they could just keep driving it down over and over, or a bot. It's very strange. There's got to be better metrics, but unfortunately,
we don't have it yet.
Part of it falls into the marketplaces and their use of floor price as an indicator versus volume. It should be, I don't know. I had a whole conversation with people about valuation the other day, and I'm like, it should be based on last sales, not floor price, because the floor price can also be way higher than the actual value is at, because there's just no listings. And so there's got to be, I think most people do their research. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a tricky one because there's no easy way to figure out the value of something because it's all just based on the demand of one person. It's like those Sotheby's sales, all you need is two people that really want a piece of art to drive it up to a huge number.
Yeah. Or even they just want to drive up the number. They don't even want the piece of art.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, or if they have a piece, you know, previously by that artist and they want to drive it up and they don't really intend on getting another piece, but they would if it means, you know, raising the value. It's almost like art is speculative in some way. I don't know.
One of the things we didn't talk about, but is important to me, is artists selling their own work and maybe not relying on marketplaces. So this wasn't asked for, but like, I think, you know, I don't think we're here to build marketplaces anymore. I think we're here to support artists and bring new things into the world and push technology and express new ideas. So yeah, I think artists making work available directly from their own websites using a contract of their own is it's a great thing. You don't have to worry about markets being made.
I think a lot about Joy, John Orion Young, and he has avoided markets almost his entire career in the space. He was here before almost everybody and doing it his own way. And he's built a very strong collector base just on that. Same with Josie. She's another example of someone who sells out her work via an email list before it ever needs to go to public. So there's definitely options out there. But I would say for artists that are trying to gain traction, marketplaces are a way to get attention outside of your own bubble. And so I do think there is a push and pull, but at a certain point we will outgrow the need for some. But I think all of us appreciate a little extra helping hand in terms of marketing our art.
I think as long as you understand, you know, what the goals are and what the purposes are of those places, you know, like obviously they want to make money. They want to, you know, push you so that they can also benefit. But also
if they're not marketing you, then you don't need.
I mean, that's I guess probably my bigger point is they need you as much as you think you need them. So
yes. But no, I mean, that's when I joined the space, making my own custom contract was outside of my abilities, you know, as a pre-manifold world. And so, you know, there was always this like, oh, super rare is the easiest way for me to mint. And then rareable is the easiest way for me to do an edition, you know. Now it's totally changed with manifold and transient and all that. And I think as an artist, if I was coming into the space now, I would approach things so much more differently. But it is, you know, lessons learned along the way, I suppose.
It's also, you know, a case of what you had to work with, right? You know, it's not even just lessons learned. It's literally like we were in some of the first waves of the first manifold contracts, right? Like we didn't have that option. And when talking to Richard, in on Zoom calls and setting up manifold contracts, it was one of those things where you're like, oh, well, this is where we're headed. Like this is going to be great, but we didn't have that. Yeah.
Well, do you remember making editions on OpenSea and you had to hack the URL? Like you had to put in a different URL in order to make a 1155.
No, I've blocked that out.
Tools have evolved, but yeah, I think we're at a spot now, Brian. You're right. Like you can go on your own and make it happen.
Well, and you can once you have your own contract, you can then take that work and put it onto a marketplace for specific reasons or whatever. So it'll be, I feel like right now we're in this real shakeup where we're seeing a lot of marketplaces go away. I think Foundation feels like they're pivoting away from doing stuff right now. And Super Rare seems like they're in it for the long haul, and Nifty Gateway is kind of paring it down, but they're in it for the long haul. And it's like, you kind of have to judge who's going to be a safe bet to put yourself into these ecosystems. I mean, I think for myself and others, we were like, I want to be in all of these ecosystems, you know, back in 2020, because you're like, this is cool. There's different communities and different mechanics and stuff. But now I think all those mechanics and things you can do on your own, it's just pretty great. It's a lot of people think, you know, I think as artists, we look at the space and we see how far things have come forward. And I think we're much more positive about the space because things are much better for technical aspects and storing of art and all these other things. And a lot of people go, oh, NFTs are dead. And it's like, no, they're continuing to get better and better.
Yeah. lots of lessons are being learned and then pivoted and reworked, and like ultimately I mean, I think it's obviously we're all still here doing this because we believe in it, but also because we've seen where it's come from and what it can be, and the the good things that have come from it. So I don't know, I'm still optimistic about the place, and the space that we're in,
Yeah.
for those reasons alone.
It boils down to the biggest thing, which is there's no other / better way to sell digital art. And people are like, oh, it's dead. It's like, well, then digital art's dead if that's the case, because you just have to go back to putting your art out on the internet for free and not making any money. And so I think it's so obvious for us because we're like, oh, we tried. We're all old enough that we've tried decades of putting our digital art into the world and seeing what works and what social medias work and Tumblr and likes and how that can lead to maybe making Patreons or Kickstarters or all these things, and none of them were sustainable. This is the best path for people actually owning digital art, in my opinion. Tokenized art doesn't necessarily have to be one chain or another, but tokenized digital art is the future.
Amen.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I will say, Bryan, it's been wonderful having you here today, talking about process, talking about all the things you do. Like I told everybody, we'll have links up to all the stuff that you've shown, all the things we've shown. But any closing thoughts? Anything coming up? Any mints coming up? Anything we should be aware of, or anything you just want to share?
I'm probably going to do an edition on bass next week.
Nice.
Nice.
That's about the only thing popping. I do want to say thank you for continuing to do this show, for doing the show and continuing to do it and continuing to bring light to artists and creators in the space. It's awesome to see something really just dedicated to that, and the fact you're giving so much time to people that don't necessarily get the voice or the exposure that they need. It's incredible. So from all of us, thank you.
It's a joy for us to do, and it's been great to have you on here because I mean, we love talking about art, and so this is a vanity project for us.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that we, whenever we're doing one, usually weekly, we look forward to it. It's the highlight of the week. So thank you, and thanks for everybody who's watching. There's been a whole bunch of people watching on the live, so we appreciate that. And I guess we will be at this again next week in the next episode.
Cool.
All right. Well, until then, we will take care and keep making art. Later.